I'm here with Bill Nolde, and what we're wanting to do today is walk through some of the case studies from Bill's past on soil fertility management projects that he's worked on. And these photos are also available to view at our website at www.truenorthoutdoor.com. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. We'll take a look at the first one. So you can just tell me about the project, what it was, and what these pictures are representing.
These pictures are from the Madrid Homeowner Association in San Diego. It's a small association, about 150 single-family homes. The lawns historically in California are on the small side, but this shows before and after the use of fertigation to deliver water conservation materials. A lot of people think that if you live in San Diego, you live in paradise, but it is a desert climate. This is an inland homeowner association, and temperatures can climb in the summertime to over 100 degrees. 105, 107 is not unusual. And the type of turf grass here is Kentucky bluegrass, about 30%, 70% perennial rye.
Question on that. Now that you've relocated back to the Midwest and our focus right now is in the Midwest, I'm a little surprised to hear that they're growing bluegrass out in San Diego. Is bluegrass pretty commonly used in California?
It is. The perennial rye is very common there because it germinates quickly. It acts as a nurse grass for the bluegrass. Bluegrass will spread by tillering, but for the most part, use of perennial rye is still pretty common. It has obviously some disadvantages. Being a cool season grass in a hot desert environment is not the best combination.
Right.
But it's inexpensive, and it appeals to a lot of folks who, in this particular association, were transplants from back east in the Midwest. They wanted to have the same kind of grass that they had back home.
The texture of bluegrass.
Yeah, and the
because
look.
the warm grasses are kind of coarse and not as luxurious as bluegrass.
Cool season grasses grow taller and they do look more luxurious, but the downside is that without what we would consider excessive irrigation, the picture on the right is indicative of drought stress.
On the right or on the left?
Excuse me, on the left. Okay. You have the issues of how much water is too much, and the association was being pressured by the city to reduce the amount of landscape irrigation water being used. So their options were to literally take out all of their turf and replace it with a xeriscape, which is basically rocks and cacti or other desert type shrubs, or finding a way to reduce the same water consumption by using fertigation. And so they installed 2 fertigation systems. They had 2 points of connection, and they irrigated almost daily in the summer, very low amounts of nitrogen to replace damaged plant material. In other words, to get it to grow, but primarily water conservation material that was applied to the soil to capture and absorb and water that was applied and to keep it from leaching past the root zone or evaporating into the air.
So is the photo here then illustrating the same level of water usage on the right as was being applied on the left?
The picture on the right is indicative of a 50% reduction in the water that was applied to landscapes because they had a significant reduction in water consumption simply by using water conservation materials.
So just to make sure I understand, on the left side, they were applying twice as much water.
Yes.
But it was still stressed because even though it was twice as much water as they were applying to the right, it was less water than they had been used to applying.
That's right.
They had been forced to reduce their irrigation because we know that Southern California obviously struggles to get water. And you were able to not only reduce the irrigation even more, but actually return the turf to a really, that looks like a nice Midwest lawn.
That's as it should be. So the significance of the brown areas on the picture on the left are a defense mechanism that even cool season grasses display when they go into drought stress. This was not overseeded, by the way. This lawn came back because it was able to grow back from rootstock.
Do you remember the time frame between the first and the second photo?
Most of these are about a 4-week time spread.
Okay, wow. Okay, let's go to the next one. So this is Jefferson Middle School in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Tell us a little bit about this.
This middle school is a heavily used sports field. Kids from the school use it for recess. They also use it for soccer, and it's irrigated with well water. Well water is notorious for having high levels of salts and in particular sodium. And consequently, the amount of sodium that was being captured in the soil, it's a high clay content soil in this part of the state as well, resulted in compaction.
If you've ever been to Colorado Springs, you know that they have lots of clay
Uh-huh.
because the Garden of the Gods is basically like a clay monument, isn't it? It's just all that red.
It is. It's a lot of sedimentary rock that when you look at it, you can actually see the striations in the rock, and they build on one another.
Yeah.
And it's, if we could take a cross section of that particular field on the left, you would see the same kind of striations in the soil profile. Because it gets not only the sodium delivered from the well water, in the picture on the right is just off camera on the picture on the left, but you'll couple that with the amount of traffic from thousands of little feet pounding on it every day. You're getting surface compaction, and you're getting delivery of sodium into the profile, coupled with the high clay content, and you get a very difficult environment in which to grow turf grass. The time period, again, is between 4 and 6 weeks to deliver the picture on the right. A fertigation system was installed, and a high calcium electrolyte was introduced into the water stream, so every irrigation got enough free exchangeable calcium to displace sodium from the soil cation exchange sites and flocculate that soil and help prevent the surface compaction from the kids constantly playing on it. And secondly, it was able to flocculate the soil deeper into the profile
I'm
and carry
assuming
sodium away.
I'm assuming on the picture to the left, there's a pretty big area that looks like it's mud.
Yeah.
Was this area also overseeded?
That bare area needed to be overseeded
Right.
because
I mean,
there
I
wasn't
was going to
grass
be
left.
really amazed if you
Yeah.
got that to
Yeah.
do that with.
We're not miracle workers.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that
now
was
I
overseeded.
do notice in the kind of in the background on the picture on the right, there's a couple of yellow spots.
Yeah, because this picture was taken, a 4 to 6 week time frame, that was a work in progress still, and so those areas greened up.
They were coming back.
They were coming back, and were still being affected by the sodium load.
Okay. All right, so the next one here, you have to forgive us. These photos are a little grainy. Right now, they're the best ones we have of this particular project. So this is Tuscany Hills. I know this was one of the big projects that you worked on. And there's kind of interesting subsequent story, which is after you left Southern California, they kind of got off the program.
Mm-hmm.
And then just a year ago or so,
Yeah,
and this is 2010.
Right.
So about in 2009 or early 2010, they actually called you back and said, help.
Yeah.
All the things that we had problems with are back, and it's even worse than it was before.
Yeah.
And you were able in a relatively short time to get them back on track. So tell us a little bit about what you did here and how it worked.
Tuscany Hills Homeowner Association is about 1,000 individual homes on about 100 acres. This slope that you're looking at is many, many slopes, some even bigger than this. This is a 2-to-1 slope, which is a very steep slope, almost impossible to walk on, let alone try to spread granular fertilizer on.
Or water.
Or irrigate it, yeah. Water tends to run off very quickly. Very thin soil layer. But although the picture on the left looks like it's bare soil, it's not. There is a ground cover on there. It's called Adelosperma alba, also known as Disneyland ice plant. And when it becomes chlorotic, in other words, ice plant is an unusual plant. It stores water in its leaves, and it looks very fleshy. But it shrinks and uses that water to support its roots if not enough irrigation water is captured. And then it begins to turn brown like this. And it's not a function of fertility, it's a function of not being able to capture enough irrigation water because it runs off too much. The other shrubs there are kind of stunted. But their goal was to be able to grow those out so eventually it would cover the entire slope. The landscape architect's plan was the ice plant was just there temporarily, and the shrubs would be able to grow and meet each other. Obviously, a function of irrigation and fertility management was not what it should have been to allow that to happen.
Was this irrigated, by the way?
Yes.
Was this, okay, so
it
this
is
was irrigated.
You can actually see the white pipes going up.
Oh, those are the irrigation pipes?
Those are irrigation pipes.
Ah.
So it is irrigated.
Okay.
Picture on the right is 4 weeks after the picture on the left. Just 4 weeks when water conservation material was applied along with low levels of fertilizer. You can now see Disneyland ice plant has greened up.
So that was actually there on the left. You just can't see it. And part of the reason you can't see it is the photo quality is kind of rough. But secondly, it's brown.
Well, let me tell you, it looked exactly like that in real life.
Yeah. I do know that in addition to this, a similar story as we were talking about in the other one, they were also getting killed with the water back then. And this was back in the early to late 90s, mid to late 90s also?
This picture was taken in 2001.
Okay.
Most of Southern California is now on a 4-tier water rationing program.
Okay.
This particular association last summer, the summer of 2009, almost forced into bankruptcy because of the cost of the water.
That was last year because they had gotten off the program, but the
Yep.
first time you went in there, this back in 2001, how much were you able to help them reduce their water bill?
We reduced the irrigation within a short amount of time, 30%, and we were pressured by the water district that supplied the water to reduce that another 20%. So we're looking at a 50% reduction in irrigation water because it's a big association and has a lot of landscaped areas, much of which is every bit as steep as this one, big slopes, big landscape areas, and the only way to salvage this entire landscape project was to do it with delivering water conservation materials through the irrigation system by fertigation.
Gotcha.